Hello everyone, thanks for tuning in to today's third video. So going to have a look at the weather for the next 10 to 14 days for today's third video. Day 10 will take us to the 18th of April, and we'll be able to extend out beyond that with extended GFS and ECM ensembles for around a couple of weeks. Have a look at CFS V2 for the next 4 weeks. That could take us into May. Of course, I should get on with that for you very shortly. Just say that the first video released today was our nice little 4-minute forecast, having a look at weather for the next few days, released at 7 AM. Nice little new feature, seems to be proving quite popular, so have a look at that. Have not yet done so. And European Outlook was released today as well, so check out those 2 videos if you would like to do that. We are growing to 11k subscribers, and we're going to put on around about 180 subscribers to get to 11k. So we are getting ever closer now to 11,000 subscribers. We're standing at around 10,820, I think. So subs moved quite a bit over the past week or two. Thank you so much, everybody, for subscribing. If you are new to the channel, then please make yourself known either when we're live streaming or you know, in the comments, and introduce yourself. Thank you so much, everybody, for doing that. But if you aren't yet subbed to the channel, please can you subscribe? And click the bell as well, and then you'll be notified by YouTube when we release our videos, and also when we're live streaming too. And tell your friends, family, everybody else who subscribe. Thanks so much, everybody, for doing that. If everybody who subscribes me as a friend, we will get to 11k subscribers that much quicker. So thank you so much, everybody. Right, going to begin this one having a look at the current situation in the stratosphere over North Park. We haven't looked at that for a little while. So this is from the JMA, Japanese Meteorological Agency. The grey line is like the trend line this time of the year, so you can see that we are in a warming warming time of the year as temperatures lift up through the spring and into the summer. The black line shows how temperatures have been performing through this season so far, and where we currently are. So you can see that back at the beginning of winter, the temperature at 10 HPA in the stratosphere is actually a little bit cold on average. We had a sudden stratospheric warming around Christmas to New Year that kept the temperature warmer than normal throughout January, and then in February you had a crash with the temperature at 10 HPA, and that in the second half of February was associated with a powering up of the polar vortex at the end of winter and into the spring. Where we currently are with the temperature at 10 HPA is very close to average, actually. So after like being cold on average through late February and all of March, we've gone into April, and we have lifted the temperature up back to average. So the temperature is lifting up now at 10 HPA, which is bringing to an end, of course, will bring to an end this year's polar vortex. We go a little bit lower down to 30 HPA, that's closer to the troposphere. There we remain colder than average, though. Quite interesting, we've got a bit of a discrepancy from 10 to 30 HPA. The temperature has lifted up a bit, but still, you see, it is quite significantly below the trend line. So at 30 HPA, we're still quite substantially colder than average. At 10 HPA, we have returned back to average, and that, of course, is the beginnings of the end of this year's polar vortex. This is how the GFS is currently forecasting things in terms of temperatures at 10 HPA over the North Pole. This is from measureseal.fr. So you can see that we've got the green colours in there over pole now. That shows that temperature has sort of decided to lift up, the beginning of the end of this year's polar vortex. Let's see how much further we go with that. So gradually the temperature will continue to just tick up slightly day by day, not overly dramatic, just a very gradual end to this year's polar vortex, not ending with a flourish, not ending with a bang, you know, just gradually fading out really as the temperature slowly but surely lifts up as we go further on into the spring. So by day 10, we get the temperature up to around minus 36 then, which on this chart, minus 36 is going to be somewhere around there, actually. That's 30 HPA, so let's move that back to 10 HPA, because that's the level that we're looking at. So on this chart, minus 36 will be somewhere around there. So the temperature got more, you know, temperature going to rise some more up to the mid-30s, minus 30s Celsius. By day 10. Again, just gradually bringing an end to this year's polar vortex. A slow weakening of the PV will take place. You have a blue curve just gradually fade away from where they are now, how much blue we have now to how much blue we have in a couple of weeks. Just a gradual fading out of the polar vortex, and that will be associated with a weakening of zonal winds as well. So at the moment, the zonal wind is still stronger than average, quite significantly so. It's from weatheriscool.com. So zonal wind is kind of like a way of finding out how strong the polar vortex is at its roots in the stratosphere. And so the black line here, of course, is trend line. So at this time of year, as the temperature is lifting up at 10 HPA, so the zonal wind should be weakening, should be falling away as we aim, the polar vortex for the season. You can see that actually the zonal wind is quite substantially stronger than average. We're just there where that blue line meets the green lines, which are the GFS ensembles. So we are significantly stronger with the zonal wind than average. And the GFS ensembles, the forecast zonal wind will stay stronger than average probably for the next week. But in week 2, there is a very substantial and significant weakening, reduction of the strength of the zonal wind that is taking place there as we go, into the second half of April. Quite significant. Probably by the end of April, we're going to have a reversal of zonal winds. Certainly by the time we get into early May, we should see a reversal of the zonal winds, which indicates that the PV has gone for this season. So it's been a rather strange season in terms of the polar vortex. We had the southern stratospheric warming, which led to a weaker than average polar vortex through the earlier part of the winter, into mid of winter. Remember, the polar vortex powered up later on in the winter as the temperature got a lot colder, and like since late February and through all of March and now into early April, the zonal wind has continued, and polar vortex therefore has continued to be stronger than average. So it's been quite a strange season with the PV, but in any case, it is on its way out now. It's coming to an end, and we won't have long to wait now before zonal winds are in reverse and we see an end to this year's polar vortex. Right, so that's brought you up to date with everything stratosphere-wise. Let's have a look at latest observations, temperature observations from ECMWF. It's a milder day out there today, but it's still pretty chilly. You've got 13 degrees, 55 Fahrenheit, flashing away at Pershore. Generally, most other areas are a little bit cooler. Matchurch, Norfolk, for example, 10 degrees. Bedford, 10 degrees. Wittering, 11 degrees. Cranwell, 11 degrees. Marham, 10 degrees. So that 13 at Pershore, it's a little bit on the high side compared to other stations. Gloucestershire is at 12 degrees. Nevertheless, it's a milder day compared to what we had yesterday. And up to eastern Scotland too, it's milder there. Boyne is at 11 degrees. Aberdeen is at 12 degrees. Still pretty chilly though in the northwest of Scotland. Altby at 6 degrees. Down to Northern Ireland, only 9 degrees. At Belfast into Wales, we've got Capel Curragh at 7 degrees. And down southwest England, we've got Norfolk at 9 degrees. Temperatures have lifted up a little bit today. This is going to be the mildest day of the week though. We're back into cold northerlies again tomorrow, I'm afraid. Unless you like cold weather in April, which of course some people will do. CT is looking like this. So central temperature is standing at 5.8 degrees. It's continuing to drop, continuing its reduction. That's an anomaly of 0.7 degrees below average. That is provisional to yesterday, the 7th of April. So colder than average for the first week of April. I think the second week of April will be coming out colder than average too. So up to the middle of the month, this is going to be colder than average April. And then, of course, we'll wait to see whether we get spring going in the second half of April. And if we do, how much that might lift up the temperature. These are the GFS upper air temperature and precipitation ensembles. Next couple of weeks, the red line is the 30-year upper air temperature average for Broxburn today in West Lothian. This is another suggested location for this part of the video. If you'd like to have your local town or city featured within this part of the video, then please let us know via the comments. We are happy to do that for you. So we're starting off a little bit milder today across the country, but also at Broxburn. However, temperatures are going to drop again as we go through the next few days. So end of week into the weekend, the beginning of next week, it's going to be colder than average. About most of next week is looking rather cold now. There is a bit of a tick up later next week, but still a little bit below the long-term 30-year average. Actually, not until we get not until we get into like the final 10 days or so of April that we are finally seeing potentially a bit of a recovery in temperature. There is quite a bit of scatter, but I think most of the ensemble members are lifting up above average by the time we get into like the final week or so of April, the last 10 days of April. The green line, which is the GFS midnight operation run, did become very mild and spring-like, and I'll show you it in a moment. If you're waiting for spring, hang around 2 minutes, and you're going to see the GFS a midnight operational run going spring-like. Precipitation-wise, there's going to be a regular precipitation to come. So during this period, any precipitation could be wintry, of course, especially so in the northern half of the country. When the temperatures recover, perhaps second half of the month, then, of course, precipitation is going to be primarily rain. And it looks like it's going to be showery, over the next week or two. Temperature anomalies. So the 8th to the 16th of April are going to be colder than average for the UK, for Ireland, and for virtually all parts of Europe. Look at that, very unusual actually to see Europe so cold, all the way from like Iceland and Ireland in the far west, all the way down to Greece and Turkey in the far southeast. So right from the very far northwest all the way to the very far southeast, colder than average, which is pretty unusual for that to happen. I suppose we've got this extreme northeastern part of Europe that might be a little bit above average, but that's more towards northwestern Russia, actually. Precipitation anomalies from the 8th through to 16th of April. A little bit wetter than average in northwest part of Scotland, otherwise near normal, just slightly on the drier and average side. Here's today's latest wind flow map from earthnorthschool.net, showing that we've turned the wind from the north into the west. So reasonable temperatures have lifted up today, somewhat anyway. It's not particularly mild, but reasonable temperature has lifted up somewhat today. Is that the wind has gone westerly coming in off the Atlantic. However, you see we're not far away at all from northerlies. Again, there's a cold front through here. Behind that, the wind is in from the north once again. And you can guess what's going to happen overnight, tonight and tomorrow. That cold front is going to push southwards, and we will see a return of the northerlies, attack of the northerlies. The northerlies strike back as we go through into tomorrow and into the weekends. This is how the UK Met is looking for Sunday, with high pressure out to our west and pulling in a cold north or northeasterly wind. We begin to cut off that northerly by the time we get through to Monday, as the wind turns into the west somewhat, but we'll still be chilly on Monday. Through to Tuesday and Wednesday, picking up a little bit more of a westerly wind, so a slight lift up in the temperature will take place, but certainly nothing to write home about, nothing to get excited about. And this low pressure will probably bring showery bursts of rain to northern and western areas. Driest weather likely to be in the south. Now, this is that GFS midnight run that I said I was going to show you. This is it here, actually. So, again, we start off on Sunday, pulling in these cold north to northeasterly winds as we go through into the early part of next week. We have a sort of shallow area of low pressure meandering around, not doing a great deal, but enough to turn wind back to west, so it will become a little bit less cold early next week. But again, nothing to get excited about. However, look what the GFS midnight run does later next week. It builds up this area of high pressure. Now, initially, this is quite a cool ridge. So initially, this is going to bring cold nights, but probably pleasant sunny days. But as we get through to day 10, the ridge is sitting right on top of the country. We are starting to pull up something a lot milder from the southwest into the ridge. So the air gradually gets warmer. Well, I think we would lose a night frost risk there by day 10. I would have thought by day 10, daytime temperatures probably into the mid-teens Celsius with that. And it gets even better then as we run into like the third week of April. The high pressure just begins to slip a little bit further eastwards, and that would start to pull up the air from France and from the continent. So that would really start to boost the temperature, potentially becoming quite warm, actually. The upper air temperature is certainly lifting up there, probably enough to get into the upper teens Celsius anyway. Right at the very end, just a suggestion, but it might be trying to turn more and settle in the Atlantic, but at the same time still pulling up the air from the south. Now, the caveat with that is that we know within the GFS ensembles that was just about the warmest option at various points. Probably wasn't an outlier because there are several other ensemble members doing something similar, but probably on the high side with that. But nevertheless, there could well be a return of spring, I think, as we get into the second half of April. Let's see what the 6Z is doing. So this is the latest GFS run. Again, putting in cold northerly winds on Sunday. Early next week, sort of a flabby low, meandering around, not doing much. Wind beginning to turn back to the west bow. It's just getting a little bit less cold. Generally settling down through the course of next week under this ridge of high pressure. Seeing the temperature by day gradually lifting up. Slow old process, but nights probably still quite cold with this. Up to day 10, we begin to get this low pressure moving in from the southwest. That could bring further showery outbreaks of rain. And the 6-8 is struggling to lower the heights over Greenland. So we do still have a little bit of northern blocking, which actually, in the end, sets up high pressure over into west of the country. Probably starts to pull quite cool winds in from the north. So this is looking more settled, but is taking much longer to lift the temperature up. And probably never really does so, actually. So the 6-8 is cooler into the second half of April, but with a bit of a recovery in the temperature and a lot of settled weather on offer too. The GEM looks like that, again pulling in winds from the north-northeast on Sunday. Going to be cold early next week. Gradually temperatures begin to stage a little bit of a recovery, and then through the second half next week we do pull something milder up from the south with these southerly winds, so that could get the temperature into the low to mid-teens Celsius, but it is also trying to build up a Scandinavian high. So by day 10 the GEM is actually getting the wind into the east. That's not going to be a particularly cold easterly, but then again, it won't be particularly warm either. So the GEM is struggling to maintain anything milder by day 10. And then the ECM looks like that, again, quite cold with those northerly winds on Sunday, before we see a gradual recovery in the temperature early next week. Eventually pulling up something milder from the south here in the second half next week. That might get temperature into mid-teens Celsius, but probably with rain, particularly so in the north and the west. And then up to day 10, just looking rather unsettled and a little bit cool, actually, with the ECM. So you see there's a lot of possibilities here, actually, around the day, sort of 7, 8, 9, 10. A lot of varying options, meaning that we have got quite a bit of uncertainty about where things are going. Will we get some spring going to the second half of the month? We might do. This is the precipitation type forecast based on that ECM run. So cold front coming south was in the next day or so. Rain in the far south and southeast from this low over France. There was a suggestion yesterday that might turn wintry, but the ECM is keeping that primarily as rain. Further north, we have snow showers into Scotland, Northern Ireland, and northern England. That wet weather gets out of the way. We're left with wintry showers coming in on those northeasterly winds on Sunday, and then early next week as we begin to lift temperature up, so we go much more towards showery rain, and then that rain sort of gets more widespread as we run up towards day 10, and particularly focused on Ireland, England and Wales, but all areas looking quite showery actually by day 10 itself. Remember, the GFS is far less unsettled than that though, between days sort of 7 and 10. This is the options on the table within the ECM ensembles today for day 10, gets us to the 18th of April. 51 out of 51 members of the ECM ensembles have low pressure to our north and are bringing in like a west or northwesterly type flow, so could be quite cool and showery really with most of those options. In 2 weeks time, this doesn't look great either. This isn't spring, not like what the GFS was showing. This is the 23rd of April. So you have 20 members of the ECM ensembles that have a mid-Atlantic ridge coming back, combined with northern blocking up to Greenland. Rather low pressure is sort of over top of the UK, and so we're back into really unsettled and quite cold weather again with that. 16 have a ridge through the country, so this is a drier option, but the ridge is sort of going a little bit to our north, which means we're probably, with most of these anyway, pulling in winds sort of a northeasterly direction, so that's probably dry but cool. And then 15 developing a Scandinavian high and getting the wind into the east. And so there might be a little bit of a southeasterly coming in with that might be potential. So that probably has the greatest potential to see a return of spring anyway, that particular option. But it is all looking rather flimsy at the moment as to whether we get spring going second half of April or not. Finally, CFSB2 is a 500 millibar heights broken down to week periods. The first week period takes us from the 8th to the 14th of April. The coming week looks unsettled with low pressure across northern West Europe combined with blocking around Greenland. Going to be cool, and we'll be bringing in wind from the northeast, so it can be quite cold, and it will be unsettled too. Week 2 doesn't really look much better either. This is the 15th to the 21st of April. We've got a trough in over Scandinavia, still combined with that mid-Atlantic ridge up to Greenland, so winds remain from the north. We are trying to raise the heights to our south. It's more focused on the southeast of Europe, so any warm weather with that is probably going more into the eastern and southeastern part of Europe, and we look like we're on the cold side of the blocking and the trough of low pressure, so cool and unsettled for the third week of April. Week 3 is going to be the 22nd, 28th of April, the last week of the month. Looks like that. Low pressure to our north and northwest. Not sure what's going on here. We might be starting to raise the heights a little bit there. Maybe a transitional sort of period, something a bit more settled. But then we go through to week 4, which is the 29th of April to the 5th of May. And we've still got high pressure around Greenland, Iceland, with low pressure sort of centering just to our southwest. And so that is probably going to be warming things up a bit. We might be starting to pull up the air from the south, but could also be quite unsettled, maybe even a little bit volatile, maybe even a little bit thundery with that. But of course, it's 4 weeks away, so it's a long way off. If you enjoyed the video, please can you smash the like button. Make sure you subscribe to our channel. Thank you so much, everybody, for doing that. If you subscribe, you're going to be able to see future weather content. Tell your friends, tell your family, and everybody else who subscribe. Thank you so much for doing this for GavsWeatherVids, and drop a comment and let us know what you think. Well, that's it for today's videos. We've brought you up to date with all of the latest developments stratosphere-wise, and yeah, we could be in for like a return of spring into the second half or middle second half of April, but it does all look a little bit flimsy, doesn't it? Let me know in the comments what you think. I think we probably will. We will come out of this very cold weather next week. So we're going to lift the temperature up to some degree next week, but could still be a little bit below average through most of next week. And then we've just got to wait and see whether spring can finally start getting going around the middle and second half of the month, or whether we're just going to keep things rather cool and unsettled overall. That's it for today's video. Tomorrow, excuse me, tomorrow we're going to have Jelly Friday. And a 10 to 14 day as well. We'll start off, of course, with our 7 a.m. forecast. So check out all tomorrow's videos if you can. For today's vids, that's all for now. And thanks for watching.